My beloved child, the truth is that there has never been a single moment in your life that was accidental. The fact that you are still here, that your heart continues to beat, that breath still rises and falls within your chest, is not because you are luckier than others, nor because you have never made mistakes. It is because I have kept you. I have laid my hand of protection over your journey, even along the stretches you never noticed. There were times you thought you survived by instinct alone, by habit, by your own toughness. But my child, without my quiet guardianship, you would have fallen long ago, especially in those moments when your heart felt most hollow. Your being alive today is not a meaningless delay. It is a space of grace, a gift of time I have given you, so you might rediscover what your soul has neglected for far too long. I know you once believed that faith could only be measured by great events, by dramatic moments, by miracles so obvious they leave others in awe. You grew accustomed to waiting for a sign strong enough to force belief upon you. Yet while you waited for thunder, I was working silently within the smallest movements. I did not test your faith by pushing you into an abyss, but by placing you in the midst of an ordinary-looking life, where days unfold slowly and steadily, and it is precisely that steadiness that lulls the soul to sleep. You assumed that when nothing remarkable happened, nothing divine was at work. You were mistaken. Some of my deepest work takes place when nothing seems to change, because I am digging foundations within you, places your own eyes cannot reach. Listen to me now with your fullest attention, not with ears trained to react, but with the deepest chamber of your soul. I do not come to plant fear, nor to threaten you with dark futures. I come to wake you from a long trance, the trance of postponement, of telling yourself there is still time. Later will do. Everything is fine as it is. You did not realize that this very sense of fine has slowed your seeking of me. You learned to adapt to emptiness and called it peace. You grew accustomed to dryness and called it maturity. But I see clearly inside you there is thirst, weariness, and a longing for a real touch, not merely another day endured. My child, every second of your life unfolds within a sacred order you did not design. Not a single breath is wasted. Not a single morning is meaningless. Even on days when you wake heavy, directionless, uninspired, I am still there. I use those days to whisper a truth into your heart. You were not created merely to exist. I allow you to feel tired so you will stop leaning on your own strength. I let you reach your limits so you will begin to seek a source beyond yourself. If I were finished with you, you would no longer feel this emptiness at all. The thirst within you is proof that I am still calling. There were dangers that came far closer to you than you ever realized. Events had been set in motion, crossroads that seemed small but could have carried you toward an entirely different ending. You never knew, because I stood ahead of you, quietly redirecting your steps, silently closing doors that, had you entered, would have wounded your soul beyond easy repair. You heard no collision, saw no intervention, and so you assumed nothing happened. Yet that very nothing was the sign of protection. I watched over you in nights when you slept unaware. I held you in days when exhaustion reduced you to moving forward by sheer momentum. You did not notice, because true protection is not loud, not dramatic, not demanding recognition. I also silenced voices that did not come from me. Some words were sown into your mind with an appearance of reason, persuasion, and familiarity, so much like your own thoughts that you scarcely questioned them. They did not shout or threaten, but slowly caused you to doubt your worth, to shrink your dreams, to believe you deserved only a life of quiet endurance. I stripped those voices of their power before they could take deep root within you. At times you wondered why you suddenly hesitated, why a once burning intention faded before completion. You thought it was indecision or weakness, yet often it was me holding you back from a choice that would have eroded your soul over time. My beloved child, I have not only preserved you from what is visible, but also from assaults you had no ability to recognize on your own. There are attacks that do not aim at your body, but at your inner steadfastness. They come to wear you down through waiting, to discourage you through the slowness of the process, to make you believe that your perseverance is pointless. I stopped them before you could begin to believe that you were without worth. If you are still able to rise after moments when you felt you could not possibly stand again, it is not because you are stronger than others, but because I did not allow your appointed time to end sooner than what I had determined. And now, I speak not by coincidence. This moment is not a random pause in the sequence of your days. It is a significant intersection, where many things will be shaped for the road ahead. You may think that today is like any other day, that you are simply reading or hearing one more message, and then returning to your familiar rhythm of life. But I tell you this, what you do with this moment will leave a deeper and more lasting mark than you realize. There are doors that do not open through dramatic actions, but through genuine listening. There are transformations that do not begin with outward circumstances, but with a heart stirred deeply enough that it cannot return to its former state. You have only a brief window of time to choose how you will respond. Not because I am in a hurry, but because your heart must be awakened before it lulls itself back to sleep with familiar excuses. If you pass by this call, you will continue to live, but you will live in a half-awake state, not desperate enough to cry out, yet not alert enough to step into a deeper dimension. I do not want you to live that way. I did not create you to exist by habit or to endure through resignation. I call you into a life of awareness, where you know why you rise each morning and why you do not give up even when everything is still unclear. Let me touch the deepest part of you right now. Do not listen only with a mind that analyzes right and wrong, gain and loss. Listen with a soul that longs to live in alignment with its true purpose. You have grown accustomed to postponing spiritual decisions, telling yourself that you will return to them later, that you will be more serious when you have time. But my child, time does not automatically make you ready. Only a response given at the moment of calling opens the next step. I am not asking you to understand everything. I am simply inviting you to trust enough not to turn away. Top of form, my beloved child. The moments now unfolding before you are not an unconscious extension of yesterday, nor are they a vague transition you can casually pass by and return to later. These are decisive moments where you either choose to rise and step into the depth of life I have been quietly preparing for you, or continue circling familiar paths, persuading yourself that such a life is safe enough. But, my child, that false sense of safety has stolen from you what is most precious, wholeness. I did not create you to live a repetitive life, existing by reflex and habit alone. I am calling you into a life with direction, depth, and meaning, a life that requires you to dare to respond when you are called. I test your faith not because I find pleasure in your struggle. I am not one who watches you from a distance to see how long you can endure. I test your faith because faith, if never placed under pressure, remains only a beautiful idea spoken with ease. A faith that has never been shaken does not know what it truly stands upon. A faith that has never been required will never discover the real strength I have placed within it. You often think faith is the feeling of peace when everything is in order. But I tell you this, true faith reveals itself most clearly when you must walk forward without any visible guarantees. Many times you have asked me in silence, why is everything taking so long? Why hasn't the answer come? Why are the knots I have prayed over for so long still not undone? I hear every one of those questions, and I do not fault you for asking. But, my beloved child, you must understand something deeper than what your eyes can see. I do not delay because I lack power. I am not slow because I hesitate or forget. Everything I do unfolds in perfect timing, a timing that aligns not only with external circumstances, but also with your inner maturity. What you call slow often does not lie in my actions, but in your readiness. I do not withhold blessings as dangling rewards to test your patience. I am preparing the vessel that will carry those blessings, and that vessel is you. If I were to pour when the vessel is still cracked, the blessing would become a burden. If I were to open the door when you are not yet steady, what should be a breakthrough would become a crushing weight. I love you too much to give you something before you can stand firm under its weight. You see only the surface of the days, the unfinished matters, the unanswered prayers, the roads still veiled in mist. But I see the entire chain of decisions shaping your destiny. I see how each time you choose to keep believing while your heart is weary, a quiet strength is being built. I see how each time you do not turn away, do not shrink back, do not close your heart, the foundation within you grows stronger than you realize. What you call standing still is, in truth, growth in depth, a kind of growth not easily recognized by the naked eye. My beloved child, faith that is never shaken cannot stand firm. A tree that has never faced strong winds will not grow roots deep enough to remain when a storm arrives. In the same way, a faith that has never been tested will collapse when confronted with greater responsibility. I am not preparing you for a small season. I am preparing you for what will require you to stand not only for yourself, but for others as well. That is why I allow the winds to blow, why I allow the ground to tremble, not to knock you down, but to drive your roots deeper into me. At times you think that if I truly loved you, I would have made everything easier. But, my child, true love is not the removal of every challenge. It is leading you through challenges so you may become who you were created to be. I do not want you to live your entire life in a state of just enough, simply because you were never pressed to trust fully. I do not want you to look back with regret, realizing you were so close, yet did not dare to take one more step. These moments are inviting you to make an inner choice, quiet, unannounced, yet profoundly formative. You can choose to rise in faith, even while your knees tremble, or you can continue to delay, continue walking the familiar circles, reassuring yourself that tomorrow will be different. But, my beloved child, tomorrow does not change on its own if today you do not choose differently. I am here not to force you, but to call you. I do not push you across the threshold. I stand beside you and wait for you to step through in the freedom of your own will. Remember this, I am not restraining your breakthrough. I am making you strong enough to sustain it. I am not sealing your future. I am enlarging your heart so it can contain the future I have appointed. You see the present moment with impatience. I see the entire journey with eternal understanding. And because I clearly see who you will become, I am not as hurried as you wish, yet I am never as late as you fear. Do not let these moments pass without meaning. Allow your faith to be awakened, stretched, and drawn beyond the familiar. For on the other side of testing is not loss, but maturity. On the other side of shaking is not collapse, but true stability. And on the other side of the choice you make today is a more complete life, the life I have prepared for a long time, and which is waiting for you to enter with a whole heart of trust. My beloved child, pause right in this moment and listen with your whole being, not merely with the mind that is accustomed to analyzing, comparing, and reacting, but with the deepest part of you where your spirit has been waiting to be awakened. I am speaking, not to add another idea to your thoughts, but to light a lamp within you. For there are things that, if heard only with the mind, will quickly be forgotten, but if heard with the spirit, they become life. I know you have been stretched thin by too much noise, the noise of work, of responsibilities, of worry, of expectations left unmet, and within that constant clamor, You have gradually grown accustomed to living without truly listening. The enemy has taken advantage of this. He does not need to come with violence or obvious blows. He comes through prolonged distraction, through accumulated weariness, through repetitive thoughts that leave your mind tangled and exhausted. He sows in you a fatigue so deep that you no longer have the strength to ask deeper questions. He does not make you doubt through crude lies, but through questions that sound reasonable. If I truly care, why are you still here if I am speaking? Why do you hear nothing if I love you? Why is everything still so difficult? And my child, those questions do not come seeking answers. They come to make you stop searching. He whispers that I am silent. He convinces you that silence means distance. But my beloved, silence is not always absence. There are seasons of quiet that I allow so you may learn to listen more deeply, no longer relying on surface emotions or easily recognizable signs. I do not disappear when you feel nothing. I do not leave when the excitement fades. In the very moments you think I am not speaking, I am doing a more delicate work removing your dependence on noise, so you can recognize my voice even when I speak in a whisper. The enemy has used people and circumstances to distort how you see me. He uses relationships that wounded you to make you believe I will also disappoint you. He uses long seasons of waiting to convince you that I am delayed. He uses closed doors to lead you to conclude that I have turned away. But my child, not everything that brings pain comes to destroy you. Some things I allow not to take life from you, but to strip away the layers that keep you from discerning my voice among so many others. No attack against you goes beyond my permission, not because I desire your pain, but because I desire your growth. You cannot learn to recognize my voice if you only hear me when everything is calm. You must learn to discern my voice in the storm, when the winds howl and the waves crash without rest. You must know that my voice does not compete with the noise. My voice passes through it. When you learn this, no circumstance will be able to take away your inner direction. I do not come to warn you about the end of the body, for the body will pass according to the order of time. I come to warn you about something far more dangerous, the stagnation of the soul. A soul that no longer longs will slowly lose its ability to sense life. A soul accustomed to postponement will gradually lose its sensitivity to the call. A soul that stops seeking will convince itself it is full, while in truth it is living more shallowly than it realizes. Spiritual stagnation is not loud, it lulls. It does not frighten you, it makes you comfortable. I also come to warn you about spiritual blindness, when you look but do not see, hear but do not understand. You may read much, hear much, know much, yet still fail to recognize what I am doing right before you. Blindness is not a lack of information, it is a lack of wakefulness. And when you are no longer awake, you will measure everything by the standards of the world, fast or slow, gain or loss, easy or hard. You will miss the depth of what I am weaving through every small detail. And there is also spiritual deafness when you no longer respond to the call, not because I am not speaking, but because you have grown accustomed to letting my voice pass without response. You hear, but you no longer pause. You sense, but you no longer act. You know, but you no longer allow what you know to change how you live. This is a very dangerous state, because it allows you to continue existing without truly living. My beloved child, many people live a long time, but never truly live. They fulfill obligations, to achieve goals, maintain appearances, yet their souls have never been awakened. Many are still breathing, but have never awakened from the trance of habit and fear. Many exist, but have never conquered, not because they are weak, but because they have never entered the true battle within themselves. I do not want you to become one of them. That is why I'm calling you now. Not tomorrow, not when you are less busy, not when everything is clearer. I call you in the midst of your weariness, in the middle of your confusion, in the very storm you are facing. For if you learn to hear me here, you will hear me anywhere. If you recognize my voice in the chaos, you will never truly be lost. Open your heart. Do not resist. Do not defend yourself. Do not analyze too quickly. Let your spirit be touched. I do not come to frighten you, but to awaken you from a life of mere existence. I come to lead you into true life, where you do not merely survive each day, but live with purpose, with wakefulness, with a victory that begins from within. And when you choose to listen right now, you will realize this: my voice was never silent. You are simply ready to hear it now. My beloved child, I did not call you to live suspended between two shores, nor did I call you to merely get by each day with a weary heart. I called you to overcome. I long to see you stand upright, no longer bowing before the shadows of the past, no longer trembling at the voices that once made you feel small. I want you to live in the authority I have placed upon you, not the authority of pride, but the authority of one who knows to whom they belong, who knows why they were created, and who knows they no longer need permission from fear in order to move forward. Before you ever saw the light of your first day, before the foundations of the earth were laid, I knew you. I called you by name in eternity. I planted within you an identity not defined by what you did wrong, nor confined by what others think of you. Yet, my beloved child, that identity has been buried for far too long beneath layers of judgment, expectations, failures, and the countless times you have exhausted yourself with self-blame. I want you to rise above every limit the world has built around you. The world loves to put you in a box. This is as far as you can go. You're not good enough. You're not clean enough. You're not lucky enough. You're not strong enough. These molds are designed to keep you small, to make you resize your dreams to fit your fears. There are cages not made of iron, but of words, memories, and distorted lessons you absorb through pain. You have lived in those cages so long that you began to call them personality, to call them destiny, to call them reality. But my child, I did not create you to live by the warped reality of fear. I created you to live by the truth of life. I want you to break the patterns that have imprisoned you for years, not only the patterns imposed by others, but also the ones you built to protect yourself. You learned to wear a hard shell so no one would see your vulnerability. You learned to use busyness to avoid the emptiness inside. You learned to smile while cracking within, to say I'm fine while holding your breath just to survive. My beloved child, I do not condemn you for this. I know you were trying to survive in seasons when you had nothing to hold on to. But now I am calling you out of that temporary way of living. I do not want you merely to exist. I want you to be healed, to be grounded, to be free. I want you to step into the identity I have written for you, the identity of one who is loved, chosen, and entrusted. This identity is not a title for boasting. It is a foundation on which to stand. When you know who you are in me, you will no longer be swept away by voices that change from day to day. You will no longer need approval to feel valuable. You will no longer use achievements to fill the emptiness within. You will no longer place your life in the hands of those who are quick to leave. You will learn to walk with the peace of one who knows they belong to the Father's house and therefore has no need to live in fear. But for you to step into that identity, I must touch the deepest places within you, the places you avoid, the regions you locked away and labeled long gone, even though they still quietly control you. I touch the wounds you pretend no longer hurt. I touch the insecurities you hide behind strength. I touch the fears you cloak in words of faith that sound right, yet lack inner truth. My beloved child, I see beyond every mask. I do not only hear your words, I hear your heart. I do not only observe your actions, I see the motives behind them. And I do not come to shame you. I come to set you free. I am your Father, and I know you. You cannot hide from me. Yet what grieves me is this: you are trying to hide from yourself. You have convinced yourself that you are fine so you don't have to face how tired you truly are. You tell yourself you trust completely so you don't have to admit that your heart is trembling. You tell yourself you have surrendered, while your hands are still tightly gripping timelines, outcomes, and scenarios you want to control. My beloved child, I do not fault you for wanting safety, but you must understand this: control is not peace. Control is only a thin garment covering fear. True peace comes when you dare to place what you cannot hold into the hands of the one who holds all things. You have come this far not to learn how to perform well. I did not lead you through so many seasons of testing just so you could become someone who says the right things, looks okay, and appears strong by the world's standards. I brought you this far so you could be transformed. I want you to become real in trust, real in humility, real in dependence on me, real in the courage to face yourself. I want you to dare to say, I need you, not as a slogan, but as a heart rightly placed. For when you dare to be real, I can truly heal. When you dare to open, I can truly fill. When you dare to let go, I can place into your hands what you could never create on your own. Listen closely, my beloved child. The victory I desire for you is not merely overcoming a situation, escaping a hardship, or receiving what you are praying for. The victory I want for you begins within: victory over pretending, victory over hidden fear, victory over the habit of self-strain, victory over relentless self-blame, victory over the cycle that keeps pulling you back to old places. For if you change only the outside while the inside remains bound, you will simply build a new cage with a different shape. But if you are free within, you will stand firm anywhere, walk through any season, and still carry life within you. I am calling you right now, not when you are perfectly ready, but in the middle of your confusion. I am lifting you higher than limited perspectives, higher than the old stories you tell about yourself, higher than the judgments of others. I am inviting you out of the shadows of trying to look okay and into the light of truth, where you no longer have to carry everything alone. I want you to stand in the authority of one who belongs to me, unshaken by noise, unbowed by the past, unruled by fear. So, my beloved child, do not run from this moment. Do not rush to change the subject. Do not hurry to fill the space with noise. Stay with me one breath longer. Let me peel away each layer of pretense, not to leave you exposed, but to make you whole. Let me teach you how to release without fearing loss, how to trust without seeing ahead, how to walk without controlling every step. For I did not call you to pretend. I called you to be transformed. I did not call you to survive. I called you to overcome. My beloved child, there have been moments along your journey when I called to you very gently, very clearly. Yet you chose to turn away, not because you could not hear me, but because you heard me too clearly and were afraid of what change would require. I spoke to you in the quietest moments, when your heart was still enough to discern what was my voice and what was your own. But you learned to grow comfortable with delay. You told yourself, it's not time yet. I need more time. When I'm more ready, I will do it. And so those days followed one another without noise, without crisis, simply a series of moments in which you stepped back from what I was opening before you. I know you did not deliberately resist me. You did not stand up and declare that you were rejecting me. You only postponed. You only slowed down. You placed my voice behind what you considered more urgent, safer, more familiar. But, my beloved child, prolonged delay can be just as destructive as open rebellion. It slowly hardens the heart. It dulls your spiritual sensitivity. It trains you to hear without responding, to know without acting, to be urged, yet remain still. And gradually, you begin to believe that what I say is not truly necessary for your present life. There were times when I warned you not with thunder or great upheaval, but through a gentle unease in your spirit, through a door closing at just the right moment, through an interruption you could not explain. Yet you learned to overlook those signs. You called them coincidence, something minor, probably nothing. You became accustomed to negotiating with my voice just this once. I'll do it later. Let me wait a little longer. You did not realize that every time you said later, you were teaching yourself that my voice could be placed behind your convenience. When I say now, it is not because I am impatient. I say it because I see what you do not yet see. I see the crossroads ahead, the time-sensitive opportunities, the doors that do not remain open forever. Yet you respond with later, because you assume time will always be there to serve you. When I say time is short, I am not trying to frighten you, but to awaken you. Still, you reply, when I am ready, as though your readiness were the measure of my plan. When I say step forward, I am offering you a chance to grow in faith. But you answer, maybe, because you want certainty before obedience. My beloved child, I understand the fear hidden beneath those delays. You fear making mistakes. You fear losing control. You fear that if you follow my voice, you will have to let go of what is familiar, of what has made you feel secure. You fear that true obedience will leave you with no way back. I do not despise your fear. I am only grieved to see you allow it to govern the most important decisions of your life. And yet today, I am calling you once again, not because you did everything right in the past, not because you have proven anything. I do not call you because you deserve it, but because my mercy is not limited by your history of failure. That mercy does not diminish with the number of times you delayed. It is deeper than the times you turned away, wider than your hesitation, more enduring than your unfaithfulness. I do not measure my love by how well you perform, but by who I am. My love is stronger than the quiet rebellion within you, even when you do not name it rebellion. I know there were times when you placed your own will above my voice. Yet my love does not withdraw when you do that. I do not close the door when you break promises. I do not erase your name from eternal purpose because you moved more slowly than I hoped. I remain there, waiting not with bitter disappointment, but with the patience of a father who knows his child needs time to learn how to trust. My patience is greater than all your hesitation. You think I have grown weary of calling you again and again. You think I have become discouraged because you promise and then delay. But, my beloved child, I do not grow exhausted as you do. I do not change as you do. I do not love according to fluctuating emotions. My patience is not weakness. It is strength expressed through love. I know when to wait, when to call, when to be silent, and when to speak once more. And this is most important: the purpose I have for you has not changed. Even though you once lost your way, your missteps did not force me to rewrite my plan in panic. Your delays did not confuse me. I accounted for your weakness from the beginning. I knew you would not be perfect. I knew there would be moments when you would hesitate. But I also know that what I planted within you is strong enough not to be destroyed by old patterns. My beloved child, the opportunity I am placing before you today is not a meaningless repetition. This is not a vague invitation meant to comfort you temporarily before you return to your old ways. This is a significant intersection, where you are invited to choose differently not by fleeting emotion, but by a deep, inward decision. You can continue to delay, continue to negotiate, continue to say later, or you can choose to respond, even while your heart trembles, even while you cannot yet see the entire road. I do not ask you to be perfect before you obey. I only invite you to be honest about your fear, honest about your weariness, honest about how long you have delayed. For when you stop pretending that you are fine, I can begin true healing. When you stop saying maybe, I can lead you with certainty. When you stop waiting until you feel ready, you will discover that the greatest readiness is simply placing your heart in my hands. Today, I do not recall your past to condemn you. I recall it so you may recognize grace, so you may understand that without my steadfast love, you would no longer have the opportunity to hear these words. The fact that you are still being called, still being invited, still being reminded is proof that I have not let go. I have not given up. I have not changed my mind about you. So, my beloved child, do not let this moment pass as the others did. Do not merely nod inwardly and continue as before. Pause, listen, and respond not with grand promises, but with one concrete step of obedience, however small. For in that step, you will discover that I am not only the one who calls you, but the one who walks with you. And this time, if you choose to step forward, you will not walk alone. My beloved child, listen with the full depth of your soul. What you are facing is not random resistance, nor are they meaningless collisions of life. The enemy is not concentrating his force against you because of where you stand today, but because of where you are being led tomorrow. He is not afraid of your present. He is afraid of the future that has already been written over your life. He sees what you have not yet fully recognized. He reads the lines of destiny that I inscribed into your soul before you could even name yourself. And because of this, he seeks every way to slow your steps, to sow doubt, to lure you into delay, to keep you lingering in a half-awake state, neither fully asleep nor truly alive. He fears your awakening. For when you awaken, you no longer live by reflexes shaped by fear or old habits. When you awaken, you begin to ask the right questions, to listen with clarity, to realize that your life is not a scattered chain of disconnected events, but a journey with purpose. He fears the moment you open your eyes and see that the things that once made you feel small no longer hold the power you imagined. He fears the day you stop defining yourself by the past, by failure, by the judgments that once pressed heavily upon you. For when you awaken, you are no longer easily controlled by voices that masquerade as truth. He fears your obedience, not superficial obedience done for appearance or correctness, but obedience that flows from a heart that has chosen to trust me more than itself. For when you obey, you step outside his realm of control. Obedience leads you onto paths he cannot predict. Obedience renders ineffective the schemes designed to lead you astray. He knows that the moment you truly follow what I instruct, even one small step, the entire landscape begins to shift, and that is something he cannot endure. He fears your transformation, not the outward change that others quickly notice, but the quiet inner renewal that unfolds within. As you begin to be transformed, you no longer react as you once did. You are no longer triggered by old wounds or pulled by familiar emotions. You think differently, choose differently, stand differently. And when a person is truly transformed, they become a profound threat to darkness. Because light does not need to shout to dispel the night, it only needs to be present. He fears your deep communion with me, for that communion is not built on formality, not dependent on circumstances, not shaken by emotional highs and lows. When you enter into true fellowship with me, you begin to hear hear my voice more clearly than the noise of the world. You learn to recognize me, not only in times of calm, but in the midst of storms. And my beloved, a person who can hear my voice in the storm is not easily broken. He fears this, because he cannot control someone who is led from within. He fears the moment you realize who you truly are in me, not the identity society assigns you, not the role you carry, not the labels that have been placed upon you, but your true identity, chosen, loved, entrusted. When you grasp this, you no longer strain to prove your worth. You stop living to please everyone. You are no longer afraid of loss, because you know you belong to the one who never loses you. And it is this freedom that causes the enemy to tremble. For the moment you awaken, the chains that have bound your family for generations will begin to break. There are cycles that do not originate from personal decisions, but from inherited patterns, shared fears, repeated failures, familiar, wrong choices. You once called them destiny, family traits, the way things are. But my beloved, when you awaken, you will be the first to say, this pattern ends here. And when one person stands up in the light, the entire current behind them begins to change direction. The moment you awaken, generational patterns will come to an end, not because you are perfect, but because you have chosen differently. You no longer respond from old programming. You no longer repeat ways of living that wounded generations before you. You establish new boundaries, new choices, new words. And though these shifts may seem quiet, their power is far greater than you imagine. One decision made in the light can reshape an entire lineage in silence. The moment you awaken, assignments set against your household will lose their authority. What was designed to divide, to drain, to exhaust will no longer find ground to stand on. Not because challenges disappear, but because you are no longer standing in the same position. You have stepped out of the role of victim and into the place of stewardship. And when you stand in the right position, what once held power over you will simply fall away. The moment you awaken, those whose destinies are tied to yours will find their deliverance. You may not know all of them. They may be your children, people you have not yet met, souls waiting for the light you carry. But my beloved, your life is not only about you. When you are freed, you open the way for others. When you stand, others find a place to lean. When you dare to believe, others dare to hope. This is why the enemy wants you asleep, because he knows your awakening will ignite the awakening of many more. The enemy fears you because I have placed my word within you, not for you to keep to yourself, but to live, speak, and act from it. When you rise in your true identity, you will carry light into places darkness has occupied for years. That light does not come through argument or competition, but through the presence of a life made new. And as Scripture declares, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. My beloved, this is not merely a verse, it is the reality I am establishing over your life. So, do not be surprised when resistance arises. Do not be shaken when pressure increases just before significant steps forward. Do not question why things feel harder when you draw closer to me. These signs do not mean you are on the wrong path. Often, they confirm that you are on the right one. The enemy only fights what holds value. He only seeks to extinguish lights capable of illuminating the way. Be strong. My beloved, I am very near. I am not watching from a distance. I am walking with you through every step of awakening. I know you still tremble, still carry questions, still have places that are not yet healed. But I do not wait for perfection before I use you. I work through willing hearts, and your willingness, however small, is enough for me to continue writing what is great. Rise up not by your own strength, but by trust. Walk forward not because you feel fearless, but because you know I am leading the way. And remember this, you are not being opposed because you are weak, but because the light within you has begun to shine. I have placed my word within you, and when you live in alignment with it, darkness will have no choice but to retreat. My beloved child, this is precisely why I am calling to you with a strong voice, without detours, without softening my words, not because I lack gentleness, but because I love you enough not to pretend that everything is calm when danger is so close. I speak as a father standing at the beginning of a road, seeing what his child has not yet perceived. When a child is walking toward fire, a father does not kneel to whisper or weigh his words to make them sound pleasant. He calls out loudly, even shouts, not because anger has erupted, but because love is racing against time. And now I am calling out to your spirit in that same way, not to frighten you, but to pull you back from what would wound you more deeply than you realize. You are very close to a breakthrough, closer than you think. Yet at the same time, you are also close to a spiritual danger, closer than you recognize. These two often walk side by side. When a new door is about to open, distractions multiply. When the moment of breakthrough draws near, the noise grows louder, not to stop you with brute force, but to lull you to sleep with familiarity. That is why I cannot speak softly. I need you awake. The danger is not physical death. A person can live a long time while the soul has quietly closed itself off long before. The real danger is distraction, when you allow secondary things to take the place of what is essential. When busyness substitutes for presence, when doing much is mistaken for living rightly. Distraction does not arrive like a storm. It comes like a thin mist, light enough to escape notice, persistent enough to soak into your habits. And then you no longer hear clearly, not because I am silent, but because the ears of your heart have grown accustomed to noise. The danger is disobedience dressed in the clothing of reason. You know what I am inviting you into, yet you negotiate. You hear, but you delay. You sense, but you postpone. Disobedience rarely appears with a fierce face. It usually comes with reasonable explanations.